One of the issues that we spoke about was the reality of cancellation of gender-affirming surgeries for trans people. Our next guest, 𝙏𝙬𝙀𝙀, has had that experience and wrote about it in an article for their publication, Business Insider, where they are a fellow. That article is entitled, "My Gender-Affirming Surgery Isn't Optional, It Is Life-Saving." And to talk about the emotional and human aspects of the things that we've been talking about from a policy standpoint is 𝙏𝙬𝙀𝙀. Tati, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Amara. So when I wrote the piece, I think that initially I was like, it felt like I was smacked in the face with this reality that, you know, COVID-19 is really taking everything. And I had this like initial feeling of like, oh, you know, and maybe things will be okay. But when I headed to the doctor's office and the psychiatrist was not there because, you know, they were social distancing, that, I don't know, that was just a very like disappointing time for me.
Yeah. Let's just take a step back, because I think it's really important for people to be able to contextualize and understand what you're talking about. So going to the psychiatrist's office is one of the necessary acts in order to be able to get gender-affirming surgery. And as I understand it, what happened is that you literally went to that doctor the day of the lockdown because they said that they were open and still available. And then when you got there, they said that they weren't there. And so I'm wondering if you can just take us into that day and emotionally, what was that like when you had this roadblock?
Yeah, so for me, it's been a while for me to try and find a psychiatrist that is actually gender affirming. And luckily through the Apache Community Health Center that I go to, the psychiatrist is gender affirming. But before that, I encountered like a lot of discrimination in that setting. And to finally get to a point where, okay, I can access this letter and, you know, access it from a provider that is more affirming and then not have that happen. It's not just like disappointing, but it just makes you feel like, you know, you can never really stop fighting. I think especially like as trans people, we're always like in this scenario where we constantly have to fight for everything, and you know, and so to kind of get very, very close to something once again and then be told that, you know, the person was not there because, you know, of social measures, well, safety measures that are in place to keep people safe. It's just, I don't know, it's just a very like depressing moment. It was like a very depressing moment for me.
I think one of the things that people don't understand is that you can't, when you're right at the point of getting gender-affirming surgery, that's not something that you just can walk into a surgeon's office with a referral and get. Can you just talk about kind of the full range of things that you had to do? How long had you been in the process of even getting to the point of getting that necessary letter so that you can move forward? How long had the process been?
Yeah, so it's been since about September of 2019. And I wasn't seen until probably about November of last year because of just the way, I guess, wait times are. And, you know, you have to see multiple counselors. You have to get letters from multiple providers. And then at the same time, you know, if your weight is, you know, if you have a BMI that's over, I think 33 or 34, so like you can't get scheduled for the surgery. And for me, that's something that happened. You know, I'm like, wow, I got first I'm like, wow, I got this far. I'm at the clinic. I'm talking to the social worker, talking to the psychiatrist that they have in house. And then the last step I remember of that day is to get weighed and to make sure that you're healthy and everything. And when I was told that your BMI is like a couple of percentages off, and you can't be scheduled to see the doctor just for a consultation, I'm like, it feels like every step of the way, like I encounter some sort of barrier. So
Yeah.
now it's weight, that's a barrier, and then now it's COVID, that's my barrier. So I think it's hard that every step of the way of this process, there's something that's constantly pulling me back.
That's right. That's right. What would gender affirming surgery mean for you, and why? Can you just talk about why, for you as a person, as an individual, it's really critical?
Yeah. So for me, it's like a combination of, the gender dysphoria and the stress that I feel, and then there's also that point of feeling like I feel like for a long time I've tried to manage as best as I could manage with the gender dysphoria that I have, and I just kind of gotten to the point, over many years since I was a child and now like a grown person, is that I don't think I can come to a point where I can have some sort of acceptance or so over that part of my body. And I think it could, be very harmful, to try and get somebody to come to some sort of acceptance that just is not really there for them. And for me, that's kind of my case, where it's just the distress is just something that is very heavy on my mind all the time. And, I want to kind of like just know what it's like to not have all that fuzz in the background. What it would be like for me to kind of just live my life and not live my life with bottom dysphoria constantly in the back of my head. So it's like I imagine, like, for me, I'm thinking like, like being able to just exist in public space, especially locker rooms, and not have to be so worried, because for me, like, I've had, issues in bathrooms before where, where people tell me I'm not in the right place. And, so that's really my reality of, constantly, not feeling safe in certain spaces. So there's this feeling of like wanting to feel safe just for myself and feel comfortable in my body, but also to just kind of really exist safely in the world and in different public spaces.
Yeah.
So it would mean a lot for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And one last question, 20 seconds. What for you is the update on your situation? I think we want to try to end on a positive note. So is there a positive update?
I wish I had a positive update. It's wild because last week was supposed to be my pre-op appointment, but because of COVID, it was canceled. But so far, I have been able to get the letters, which is a good thing. And those letters were sent off, so I'm still, I don't think I'm as hopeful as I was before, but I'm definitely seeing, the statistics and everything in terms of COVID cases. Things are improving in the city. So I'm still hopeful for my July 28th surgery date that, hopefully that could still happen.
Well, we are wishing you all of the best, and I really appreciate you coming on to talk about something that's so personal, and appreciate your journalism and your writing about this in a really important way. I also wanted to let you know that many of our audience members have been sending you the best and expressing their sadness at your situation, and are hoping that you're able to get the care that you need. So please leave with that and keep us posted.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Amara.